Hey guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a reaction video. So this is not what I'm going to be reacting to over on Canadian Knife and Gear, which is probably my favorite sort of sub-segment of the knife community at this point. We had a great discussion this morning. Someone put the post up, share your most unpopular knife opinion, and there were a lot of great opinions shared, some really good common sense stuff, some really funny stuff. And so what I want to do in this video is just react to those. Now, I also want to invite you guys to react down in the comments, and feel free to share your own unpopular knife opinions. I'd love to hear them, and if it ends up being a lot and a lot of different ones than what I'm going to share with you here now, we may do a follow-up to this video so that the rest of the community can sort of experience the comments that you guys come up with on this video. All right, so let's get this stuff out of the way. I'm going to pause this. I'll bring the comments in. By the way, what I've done is printed off the comments and struck out all the names so that I'm not sharing anybody's personal information that they don't want shared. This should be a lot of fun. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so here we go. Starting with number one, cold steel knives are great, and CRK knives, Chris Reeve knives, are overrated and overpriced. Well, I agree with at least half of this statement. Cold steel knives are great. I love cold steel knives. This one's a mess. My wife was using it for cooking the other day, and I haven't had a chance to clean it up yet. But the thing is, who cares, right? I don't know what she could do to damage this knife, and so for that reason, great. Now, on the other hand, I'm definitely a Chris Reeve knives fanboy. I know not everyone is. I actually think the value is pretty good on them for what you're getting and for the kind of fit and finish and tolerances and level of quality that they're hitting. I think they're pretty well done. That said, I can see why some people would be a little underwhelmed. And that is, these are on my list of what would you say, most hyped, overhyped knives or something like that. And I do think the Chris Reeve hype can be a little overdone. I love them, but they're not like the end all and be all. Let's see. Most knife and gear guys can't run to the mailbox without a heart attack. Yeah. That's why they have to carry. Anyway, yeah, there tends to be a few of us who are a little out of shape. Look, I'm a big advocate for exercise for many, many reasons. Mostly, though, I have little kids and I got to keep up with them. So I've got to keep myself in some kind of level of reasonable physical fitness. And I think you should too if you're watching this. That said, look, I don't know. This is something I shouldn't talk too much about because I'm going to get myself in trouble. Anyway. Yeah, it's true. There are a lot of knife and gear guys who are not in good shape, and anyone who falls into that category, including myself, we all need to work on that. If you can't tell a knife is quality by the machining on it, you probably can't tell the quality of anything material you own. Okay. I mean, not a bad point. I think there are, even someone who's not familiar with machining or not very mechanically inclined and doesn't know what goes into making something can probably tell quite a lot on close examination, just looking at, fit and finish and attention to detail and seeing how well something's been thought out and put together. They may not know that much about machining. But yeah, there's something to this for sure. I've got a couple of flashlights that aren't very well machined, and you can tell, and even someone who's uninformed can probably tell. Let's see, more expensive is not always better. True. Yeah, that's right. It doesn't really matter what bearings a knife has. Oh, this was my comment. I should have left my comments out. But anyway, yeah, I don't really care whether they're, phosphor bronze or Teflon or ceramic bearings or stainless steel bearings. I like some better than others. I really like, thinking of, our Chris Reeve comment from earlier, I think Chris Reeve does the best job of phosphor bronze washers. They're nice and big, deliver a lot of stability. I just think this is something so simple, just making sure the bearings are large, that any knife company could really do it, and I wish more of them would. So yeah, I do have some preferences. I like roller bearings the best of all the different, ball bearing type systems. I love dual row or even triple row ceramic bearings, or roller bearings, which are probably out of those type of options, I think roller bearings are definitely the best one. And that's not just me. There's been some testing done that kind of demonstrates that. So yeah, that's my rant about bearings over. Let's see. Someone says I have to disagree. After upgrading to ceramic bearings, my knife opens 0.00001 milliseconds faster. Speed matters. Someone says washers are way better. So yeah, there's a bit of a discussion about that. Let's see here. Big knives are ridiculous in an urban environment. Come on, big knives are never ridiculous. You know, here we have a Yo Jumbo, and yeah, it's a big knife, and there are probably certain situations where I would hesitate to open it up and take it out. But I think that's partially, due to the fact that, you know, urban living has softened people and made them, just lack a lot of common sense to what really matters in life. So, for those of you who live in cities, I feel for you, man. I really do. But frankly, living in a small town and having to deal with the influence of city people coming in and asking for certain things puts a lot of us off. So anyway, yeah, cityites. That term is often well deserved. Let's see here, and I know it's not true of everyone, so don't be too hard on me. Let's see here. Heavy is good. Heavy is reliable. If it doesn't work, you can always hit them with it. I mean, I guess this is kind of all right. You guys know me. I'm not a big fan or I'm not a big stickler for weight. I carry lots of knives that are big and heavy and kind of bulky, and it doesn't really bother me. I guess some people are, more sensitive flowers and can't carry anything too heavy because they might throw out their back or something. I don't know, but nothing fancy. Maybe that's his issue there. Anyway, yeah, I don't think weight is a big deal, and people do tend to make a big deal about it. Although it's kind of backing off. Medford, Strider, Emerson, CRK are all hot garbage. Wow, this guy doesn't pull any punches. And then I love the response. I don't need to say anything. Someone wrote, "You somehow managed to misspell Benchmade 4 times." Let's see here. Sabenzas remind me of Glock. You see one, you've seen them all. Well, yeah, Sabenza is just one model. So now I wonder if this guy's thinking Chris Reeve knives are like Glock. You've seen one, you've seen them all, and maybe he's thinking of like, the original Sabenza, the 21, the 31, the 25, the Inkosi, the Umnumzon, right? They are definitely similar, and they all have that Chris Reeve feel to them. To me, that's kind of good. I want to see that. But then there's still like the Menandi, and I don't know, there's a couple others, the Nyala. There's some knives that definitely go outside of that mold. But fair enough. I would kind of expect all of one model to be about the same, right? Remember, Sabenza, this is more like saying all Glock 17s are the same. You've seen one, you've seen them all. Well, yeah, they're all Glock 17s. Smooth drop shot action doesn't matter. Yeah, that's mine. And I showed you guys a bunch of knives earlier. So, this is one of my favorite knives. It does not drop shut. Well, it kind of does, but I don't really care. Like, this is not a knife you're going to flick open. It's still very satisfying and very enjoyable nonetheless. A knife like this, where this is the Kaiser Justice, it does have drop shot action, and it's fine, but I don't feel like that just makes this knife somehow significantly better than this one. If you think Medfords are well-designed knives, you're probably a mouth-breathing Neanderthal. Well, I guess I'm not a huge fan of Medford knives myself, but I'm sure there's some normal people who breathe through their noses and still like Medfords. Frame locks are one of the weakest, most temperamental locks there are. Yeah, probably true. I mean, I like frame locks just fine, but yeah, they do have their limitations. Striders aren't hard to use at all. They're as fragile as hell. Okay, I'm not a Strider fan at all, so I'm going to try to check my bias a little bit. But in a video like this, I think I can kind of let it go. Yeah, I don't like Striders. I think the design is not that great. The blade to handle ratio is terrible. They're not all that comfortable. The edges are too squared off. I hate the fact that they've gone with a design that requires an internal stop pin, and then that design was borrowed. The Benchmade, I don't know, there was that Osborne design that had one, and it was like, why? This was dumb on Striders, and it's dumb wherever else it's used as well. And they have terrible cutting geometry. So for all those reasons, yeah, I'm not a fan of Striders. I know there's, some guys talk about how great they are, but I find them thick behind the edge. And anyway, no fan of Emerson charging one extra and having to pay full MSRP just to be able to carry one of their normal folders left-handed. Oh, okay. So I didn't know this was a thing. I guess Emerson, if you want a left-handed Emerson, they'll custom make one for you, and it costs more. I don't know. I'm not left-handed. I will say I get why I get why companies don't often cater to left-handed people. It's sort of like the Band-Aid thing. There were some complaints about that there aren't colored Band-Aids. Well, the fact is, if you're in business to make money, you've got to cater to the majority of people, and the majority of people are right-handed. So, it's kind of like when you have some characteristic that's not common, that's going to present some problems for you, right? A blind person is going to have a hard time in the world, and that's part of what comes with being blind. Same with, if you're a lefty, yeah, most things are going to be designed for right-handed people because most people are right-handed. Metal scales on knives are uncomfortable and provide no grippiness when using your knife. Yeah, fair enough. There are ways I think you can get around that, but yeah, that's a pretty common problem with smooth handled, steel or even titanium folders. Flippers and bearings are incredibly overrated. Yeah, that's true. I like flippers just fine. I like bearings just fine, but do they need them, and does a knife need to have them to be good? No. And actually it was recently that I saw a YouTuber complain about a knife because it didn't have bearings. And he's like, well, if you're charging this much, it should have bearings. And I was thinking to myself, at this point, you still think bearings have some relationship to cost? Like there are $40 knives, $30 knives with bearings, and there are $5,000 knives without them. Like that's not anyway. But yeah, agreed. Bearings and flippers and bearings are incredibly overrated. I don't know about overrated, but they're not necessary for sure. PM2 should be carried tip down with a stock clip. Stock clip, I like Spyderco's stock clip, but no knife should ever be carried tip down. I mean, I did it with the military and it was fine, but it wasn't my favorite thing. The sandwich you're cutting doesn't care what super steel your knife is made of. Yes, there's a lot of comments like this you'll see in this thread, and it's true. The fact is, right, most people, if all knives were magically switched to ATR 13 MOV, most people would have no idea because we just don't use our knives that much. Like it's something you carry for that odd time when you need it. And for most of us, what is that? 2, 3, 4 cuts a day. Maybe once in a while we pull it out and whittle on a branch or something. Like, yeah. Anyway, let's see. Ryan is a cool guy, but he freaks us all a little. Ryan's one of the admins on the page, and Ryan's a good guy. So good comment. Lightweight scales are garbage material and feel cheap, which ruins every knife I've ever seen them on. Yes, I would rephrase this, and I think what this guy's referring to is the FRN that Spyderco uses on all their lightweight models. And I hate FRN generally speaking. There's a couple knives that use it where it's not that bad. I've seen a couple of cold steels where the knife doesn't feel cheap and plasticky, but most of the time FRN feels cheap and plasticky, especially on the Griptilian. It's okay on the Endura, but I'd still rather have G10 any day of the week. And especially the Manix lightweights, they do really feel like toys. The Griptilian has the same problem. Let's see. Lightweight scales just make, oh yeah. Lightweight scales, this is a reply. Make it easier to throw the knife as far as you can so you can get with a knife that feels like an actual tool. Spyderco knives are ugly. Yeah, some of them are. There's been lots of comments about this. Sal has often said, I don't really care how the knife looks. I just care how it fits in your hand and how it cuts. And there's definitely some legitimacy to that. And so, well, I believe that. I also think, looks do matter. All right. And so most of us are going to buy knives by looking online and shopping through catalogs. And that means we're going to be, making decisions based on looks. So looks do matter a little bit, even if you'd like to think that they don't. D2 is not premium steel, no matter who heat treats it or makes knives out of it. No, that's true. D2 is actually a pretty budget steel. I'm not sure what he's referring to. Maybe Brose blades or some custom makers that really like it. The fact is, though, it's a good steel. All right, and I will say this. I think there's what would you say? There's sort of a correlation, at least one that we've sort of adopted within the knife community, where if a knife costs over a certain amount, we want a certain steel. And probably, and I buy into that too a little bit. Like I often see really expensive knives with N690 or VG10, and I'm like, no, right? If you want me to spend that much, I need more premium materials. And so, yeah, D2 can fall into that category as well. Steel flame parts and large skull lanyard beads are the knife world equivalent of tap out shirts. Yes, true. Those steel flame clips are insane. Let's see. Next one. CBSA is not that bad. Yes, it is. Someone replied, he said unpopular, not wrong, which, yep. Let's see, have we already, oh yeah. Neck knives. Neck knives are beyond. Oh, you guys probably can't see it. There we go. Neck knives are beyond the best and only knife you'll ever need. No, neck knives are terrible. In order to make a knife light enough to carry around your neck, you have to make it too small to be useful. I've never put a knife around my neck. Even I've had minimalist. I've had silent soldier. I've had a few others. It's never comfortable, right? Yeah, no. Neck knives are terrible. Just put it in your pocket. Like a knife that's big enough to be useful is too big to carry around your neck. If you can't sharpen your own knife, turn in your man card. You're an embarrassment. True. The $50 to $100 knife in your pocket is more useful than the $800 knife in the showcase. Well, yeah. Now, I guess by showcase he means like a Safe Queen knife at home. Either way, it's true. Showcase generally you'd think of as a store. But yeah, no question that the knife you have on you is the most useful one compared to the one you left at home. Companies can label 440C as M390 and 99% won't know the difference anyway. True. Only dorks buy Spyderco. Yeah, that's probably true. Exhibit A is, let's see, one, two, three, and these three are just, I happen to grab a couple knives. I've got a couple more Spydercos sitting on the shelf at home. And yeah, if I'm exhibit A, then fine, I'm exhibit A. I'm definitely a bit of a dork, and probably most of you are too if you're watching knife videos and know what a Spyderco even is. I'm proof of this. Yeah, so am I. Probably true. If you don't use and cut with your knife, and you don't have a knife, you have a piece of shelf decoration. So that's this one here. Yep. Okay. I don't know what if it's not on a shelf? Is it still shelf decoration? What if it's in a drawer? Then I guess it's just drawer decoration. Wow, that was hard to say. Jim Skelton is trash. I mean, I don't know. He does a great job, and I got to give Jim some credit. I know he's not super popular, and people have raised various concerns, but Jim does a good job with his videos, and there are a lot of knives that I know about and enjoy only because I was made aware by Jim Skelton. So, I've got to give the guy some credit. I kind of wish he was still making videos. He said, that he was kind of getting out of that when he became a custom maker, and that's fine. But I do kind of miss drooling over some of those high-end knives that he would get his hands on. I thought that was just an accepted thing. And someone said, yeah, you're actually right. Anything with a blade over 3.5 inches should not fold. What? Any knife with a blade less than 3.5 inches probably shouldn't exist at all, but it can definitely fold. Consider the Recon 1. All right, totally fantastic knife. It folds. It's got a 4-inch blade. It's fine. Yes, are there certain things that you can't do with a folding knife? Of course. But for most cutting tasks, right, if I'm just cutting a piece of fruit, that's fine. Are there some things that a fixed blade can do that you don't want to do with a folder? Yeah, no argument on that. Let's see. What are we? Okay. Strider knife fans are the best fans ever. Strider knives and their fans are the best ever. I guess, you know, everybody's got some fans. Everything needs fans. I have, if you like Strider knives, that's great. I'm not a fan, so I guess I can't be the best ever. Bowie blade on the XM18 is by far the worst. I have to agree with this one. I know who made this comment. We were talking about it in person a few days ago, and yeah, I tend to agree. I'm not a fan of the Bowie hinderers. I know they're kind of having a resurgence right now. But I would take basically any other blade shape if I was buying another hinderer. Cold steel is good enough for most tasks. Yes. Let's see. I have as much use for a $20 knife as a $400 knife. Okay, fair enough. I guess this is back to the old value discussion. And will your $20 knife do the same thing as a $400 knife? Kind of, yes. Will the 400 knife do it better, more comfortably, more reliably for a longer period of time? Probably. Also, yes. All knives should come unsharpened. Who does the maker think he is, choosing the edge of my blade? Yeah, actually, this wouldn't be a bad idea. We could all set our own edge angles to the ones that we like, as long as they came, thin enough behind the edge that we could do that. That would be fantastic. Although I will say there would probably be a lot of really janky edges out there, because not everyone is equally as good at putting a knife edge on. So I can say I appreciate the factory at least giving us a start. Blade geometry and heat treat matters way more than blade steel. Blade geometry. Yeah, I mean, the fact is, all of those factors matter. All right. So, but steel definitely matters quite a bit as well. I've often thought about this. Would you rather have, I don't know, 14C28N at a very high Rockwell hardness or M390 at, 58 or 59, right? That's a difficult question, or even more, even a greater discrepancy. Let's say 440C at 65 Rockwell or M390 at 60 Rockwell, right? I'm going to take the M390 over the 440C because there are other properties that come into play as well. And yeah, of course, blade geometry matters, and a lot of different factors matter. Grind matters, edge angle matters, how refined your cutting edge is, or how refined you've gone with your sharpening. All of those things matter. Uh, Makers know we love to, yeah, get off on the coolest super steel. Well, yeah, of course. And really, that's I think part of this whole discussion. And sadly, right, steel has become a marketing tool more than anything else, and that's kind of too bad. He who keeps knives in boxes doesn't need super steel. Well, no. Again, I would argue no one really needs super steel. Um, I think you got it backwards. The whole point of keeping the knife in the box is because of the super steel. And how else will you keep the dust off? Yeah, right. Uh, let's see here. My Mora Bushcraft has more miles on its edge than any Sprint Run, Spyderco, or CRK. Maybe. I don't know. There's a lot of really, really heavily used CRKs out there. Most Spyderco Sprint Runs, yeah, people are trying to preserve the value so they can sell them at a later date. I mean, I get it. I don't know. The Sprint Run, someone comments somewhere here that Sprint Runs are really just an excuse for Spyderco to print money. And that's true. All right. There are certain ones, I missed out on the 20CV Para 2, and that was my biggest regret in the whole time I've been into knives. But it would have been a user. I would have just carried and used it like anything else. Tanto tips are ridiculous. Not really. I kind of like Tanto tips. They're useful. They have a lot of, I mean, I guess for certain tasks you want belly on your knife, but there are just as many tasks that a secondary tip works really, really well for. The Buck 110 isn't overrated. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I guess it has a significant place in history, but these days, with what knives are available in the modern world, there's no place really left for a Buck 110. Multi tools are more useful than folding knives. Kind of. I don't know. I find the drawback to a multi-tool is that it's trying to be a jack of all trades, and it really is a master of none. Where, if I've got some real cutting to do and I take this knife, I open it and I do that work, I'm going to enjoy it, and I'm going to be more effective with this than any of the blades on any of my Leathermans. These posts, oh yeah, these posts are my favorite. I thrive on controversy. Someone, I'm assuming the OP, says you're welcome. Um, Nobody needs anything better than S30V for regular EDC. Yeah, fair enough. Timascus is tacky. Yeah, I agree with that. Damascus and all the beautiful colors are ruining knives across the board for me. Yes. All knives should be serrated by law. No, no. There can be a place for serrations, but man, they're a pain in the neck to sharpen, and most knives look better without them and perform basically just as well. So yeah, not a fan of serrations. Oh yeah, someone responding to the serration stuff says bread knives belong in the kitchen. Amen to that. Olight is overrated. I don't know, probably a little overrated, but here's my thing. I think Olight is sort of the entry level nicer flashlight option, and they do a decent job. They have pretty good sales. They offer pretty decent performance, especially if you like a floody light, which generally speaking I do. Right, there are certain like search and rescue applications where you want a really long throw so you can stand in place, and but even then, right, I don't know. I don't think they're that overrated. Maybe a little bit. They've really become popular these days, so maybe they're a little overrated, but not that much. A blade that's under 6 inches long shouldn't be more than 3/16 inches thick. Fair enough. I like thick blades, but yeah, I can get that. Or maybe I would modify this to say, if it is going to be super thick, just make sure it has a hollow grind, and then you're good to go. Strider's handles are about as comfy as a block you'd use to keep a door open. Yes, Medfords are worthless because most of those in Canada have voided their warranty just to get here. Yeah, if you need some context for this, what a lot of guys do to avoid any problems with importation is they have knives disassembled and shipped separately. So you get a blade shipped to you, and then you get a handle shipped to you. You put it together on this end, and that's a pretty much foolproof way to avoid any problems with CBSA. It does cost a little more, and in Medford's case, the problem is they don't want you taking their knives apart at all, and so you've voided the warranty. Olights are overpriced and all that. Yeah, that's the affiliate marketing around Olight does kind of suck. Like every single YouTuber, including myself, has promoted Olight. I mean, I've never gotten any money from Olight for it, so I'm just a sucker. But there are lots of promotions out there for Olights, and they really use that as a key part of their marketing, which frankly, I think this day and age is just good marketing, right? You want to use social media for marketing more so than other options these days. If you have to carry a pouch or bag, you're carrying too much. Obviously, work bags don't count. I kind of get this. Now, I have the advantage of, I work in an office, I carry a laptop around, so I need a bag anyway. Um, and because of that, I do usually carry some extra gear in my bag. But if it's not a bag, then it's going to be cargo pockets. All my pants essentially have to have cargo pockets. Or now these days, when the weather's colder, we're all wearing coats, so we have those extra pockets. May as well use them. TRM neutrons are too thin to be held comfortably. I've never held an atom, but I imagine it's the same. Yeah, I mean, both of them are pretty thin and have pretty thin blade stock, none of which I love. I'm not a fan of steel handles, and butterfly knives are lame and impractical. True. A guy who asks for opinions on what he should get his girlfriend should just ask his girlfriend. We carry the same knives you do. You know what? I think knife guys just sit around and think of scenarios so that they can throw a question out there to the community, right? It's like, I need a knife for camping. I need a knife for mountain biking. I need a knife. They're just thinking of various scenarios so that they can throw the question out and get a bunch of people's comments on knives that maybe they haven't thought of yet. And you know what? The same knives are going to come up, of course, over and over and over again. Drop shot is not desirable. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of totally purely drop shot knives like the Grimsmo Norseman. The Rask, same thing. They're kind of cool, but I like to have just a little bit of resistance there. Carrying a Leatherman is better EDC than a folder. Not necessarily wrong. I carry both. Okay, carrying a Leatherman. You know what? I generally a Leatherman is overkill. Like I don't need pliers as much as I need something to cut with. I both carry both and a fixed blade. Incriminating yourself by posting prohibited items is a silly thing to do. Yeah, this one is common. So up here in Canada, OTFs, any switchblade of any kind is prohibited. And generally speaking, you don't want, right? And I have seen people post on social media, oh, I got a new knife, I got this mail call, and it's a prohibited item. That's a really dumb idea, especially because there's pretty good evidence, more so in the gun groups, but there is evidence that RCMP and probably in the US, I'm sure the ATF probably tracks Facebook pages to see what people have. Let's see, a knife isn't an axe. No, it's not. We've talked about this before. That said, I do think anyway, we'll see. I'll comment more on a comment down below. A knife isn't an axe, a pry bar, screwdriver, or a hammer. It's a knife meant to cut stuff. That's it. Good point. People that anno their customs or limited edition knives should be banned from knife buying and get a good flogging. Yeah, I mean, if you're really good at it, and there are some limited people, Fanatic Edge does a nice job. And so if he wants to continue doing that, great. But if you're going to take your, I'm so tempted to say, but yeah, if you're going to take this really nice, expensive knife and do some modification to it that severely limits its appeal, hopefully you're planning to keep it forever. I've got to say this, guys. I follow Tom Veff on Instagram, and he puts those VEF serrations on some knives, and I'm just about to cry watching what he's done. And so I've got to, nothing against Tom Veff, and I think those serrations are cool in given applications, but most knives do not and should not have VEF serrations. Okay, this is just a great troll or troll. Okay, this is such a great blah blah blah. Crossing close. Oh, yes. Okay, so we have a Fishing Friday post that we use, and yeah, sometimes I'm scrolling through looking at what knives I want to buy, and I see a lot of watches and a lot of bags and a lot of coats, and I don't love it. I don't really care. 8CR13 is fine steel. I think this might have been me. Uh, anyway, I still think, yeah, for most of us, it's fine. For 420HC, I'd probably agree. 420HC from Buck would be a different program, different ball game. VG10, again, I like VG10 steel as long as it's not on too inexpensive of a knife. Let's see. You're missing out if you collect expensive knives and only use your budget blades. If you don't get a kick out of beating on your quality blades, you're wasting money on the wrong knives. I mean, I don't know. Yes and no. Here's what I would say, right? Use the tool for what it's meant for, right? And if you do that, then you're going to be fine. I've seen people take those East Wing hammers and, slam the claws into something and try to bend, and then bend them sideways. Well, that hammer is designed to exert force in a particular direction, and I've seen a lot of bent East Wing hammers, and now that hammer is ruined, right? You'll never get it back to proper balance, and it's going to suck from now on. So there is a point to be made about using a tool for what it's designed for, and some knives are not designed to be, in particular applications. I'm not, whatever the case may be. Benchmade doesn't make the best Axis style lock. I don't know. I definitely like the Benchmade's application of the Axis lock. There are others out there that are really good, no question. But I don't know. I guess I'll let that one just go. Anything with a thumb stud is a thumbs down. No, come on, man. Thumb studs are great. Thumb studs for life. Someone doesn't like flipper tabs. Really, I don't care. As long as the knife deploys when I want it to deploy and shuts when I want it to shut, that's all I really care about. Drop shut is boring and less impressive than glassy, smooth, controlled closing. Either one. I'm sure this guy is a Chris Reeve Knives fan, and the guy who made the other post is probably not. Let's see. Have we already looked at this page? Oh, now here we go. Here's a little bit of pushback to the guy above. So if you want to get a very expensive and fancy knife and not use it in a way that will damage it or require edge maintenance, that's okay. Haters gonna hate, but I'm cool with wanting your $1,000 piece of sexy engineering to stay a safe queen. Yeah, so am I. I mean, you bought it. Use it however you want. I do think people kind of freak out, and I think part of that is, there's a little bit of jealousy involved, and I get it. Look, I see people buy, 70, $80,000 trucks, and you kind of know you're never going to use that as a truck, and even to be concerned about, oh man, I don't want to put anything in the back so it'll scratch up the finish. And I'm like, why did you buy it? You should have just bought a car. And part of it is, because I go, yeah, there's no way I'm spending that kind of money, and maybe I wish I could. I don't know. But I do think there's a little bit of sour grapes involved in comments like that. Collecting the same model in all textures, colors, and textures is dumb. Get tools and play second level with your stuff. I mean, I don't know, whatever. If you really like a particular model, buy all the ones you want. Norseman knives are ugly. Yes, they are. I don't get all the love for PM2 and Para 3. Well, I don't get all the love for the Para 3. It's just too small. The Para 2 is almost perfect. You could have had a bigger one. So I think they should do, I was wishing that the Para 3 would be like the same size as a military, but with a compression lock. That would have been awesome. Easily attained standard knives. The box has zero value. Yes, I don't know what it is about, and I sell some knives. I'm sure all of you do too. But yeah, people get freaked out about the box, and it is a really weird thing. I think part of it might be trying to avoid scams, so that if they've got the box, presumably that means that you're getting the genuine article. Let's see. Skulls, Deadpool, Star Wars, and Punishers belong on teenagers' posters and not on knives. I agree and disagree. I loved the color scheme of the Benchmade M4 Freak, the Super Freak. I love the skull theme on Chavez knives, but generally, yeah, I'm not a fan of skulls. I know Dr. Frunky's gonna be like, "You jerk, Kevin." Um, but yeah, skulls don't usually belong on knives, especially they were like the CH knives, and there's been a few knives where it's like a whole skull pattern down the knife. I think those look ridiculous. So yeah, Frank, you can, Dr. Funky, you can be upset with me if you want to. Benchmade Proper has a $6 action. I'm not a big traditional knife guy, so I can't really speak much to this, but I'll take it from the guy who made this comment does know. Benchmade 940 is too small for the hand of any real man. Yes, that's always been my problem with the 940. They need a different version that's just a little thicker in the handle, and the blade needs to be a little bit taller so that it's got better cutting power. It's an awesome knife with a poorly designed pocket clip is a bad knife. I don't know about that. Most pocket clips are okay, and I'm not super picky. If it goes in and out of my pocket reasonably well, I'm happy with it. But the Benchmade 940 comment is right on point. And now they're making a small 940. I'm like, that knife was already too small. Um, let's see. Oh yeah, and someone else said, yeah, and stop putting lanyard holes and moving the clip. That is a fail. I do dislike that. Um, a knife does not need a lanyard hole. It should be like a secondary consideration at best. And so if you're moving the clip to allow for a spot for a lanyard hole, your priorities are completely out of whack. Put the clip in the best place possible, and if you can't put a lanyard hole on it, who cares? It doesn't need one anyway. If your knife is so small that it requires a lanyard, it's too small. Just give me enough handle that my whole hand fits on the handle in the first place. Let's see. I can genuinely dislike a knife without meaning disrespect to what? I can genuinely dislike a knife without it meaning I disrespect the maker. Oh yeah, fair enough. There are lots of knife makers I see out there who, I like some of their work. They've had limited success, and then they come out with something new, and I just think it's horrible. And it doesn't mean I think they're less of a person. I just think they've designed a poor knife. Pooping before morning coffee is a huge mistake. Doing anything before coffee is a huge mistake. Amen. Let's see. I'd take a sub 50 USA made knife over $200 plus Chinese made knife any day. Nah, I really don't care. I don't know what price point has to do with it, and there's certainly no indication of quality. In fact, there are some times where I actually think, I feel like some companies should be like, I've handled some knives where I thought the company should not have put USA made on this because this is a piece of garbage, and it makes me think US manufacturing sucks. The same has been true of knives from just about every country, and so I don't really care. Let's see. The design of is more impressive than oh, yeah, no. The design of insert any good plastic knife, bug out, pair 3 lightweight, etc. is more impressive than your high-end titanium knife. Hinder, yeah, no. That's just silly, especially when they feel like cheap, crappy toys. CRK, CRK gets a lot of hate. I think, they hate you because they ain't you, right? Lock strength has 10% of the importance people place on it. True. I'd rather have a non-locking knife than a poorly locking one. True, I guess. Frankly, you should be treating any knife as if it can fold on your fingers. So never put negative pressure on the blade of any knife ever. Simple. So then it doesn't matter whether it's strong lockup, weak lockup, whatever the case may be. A well-designed slip joint is better than a poorly designed blade lock. Yes and no. I mean, I don't. A poorly designed knife is a poorly designed knife, so it's going to suck. And of course, a well-designed knife is a well-designed knife. Let's see here. I love Pelican lights. I've taken them on patrol and burning buildings. No one talks about them. It's all about the O lights. Yeah, O lights are pretty popular right now, and that's definitely gonna. Anytime a company becomes really popular, it's gonna get some flack. Let's see. Fixed blades can be just as sexy as folders. Yes, if not more. Frame locks, Boo titanium, to heck with bearings. S30V is with a good heat treat is absolutely wonderful to own and use. Whatever. I don't. This is like a strong opinion. I suspect this is someone who hasn't had a lot of high-end knives and doesn't appreciate the cost, and maybe they just they don't feel like spending that kind of money on a knife, and so they've got to talk bad about anyone who does. A Swiss Army Classic would do 99% of our daily tasks. True. And then oh shoot, I left Scott Riley in here. Most of you guys know Scott anyway, so it doesn't really matter. I did miss a name though. One thing I know is going to be an unpopular opinion for sure. There's a bunch of toxic masculinity in the knife community, and it's 15 years behind the times. I don't know. So the first thing is, I think you have to define toxic masculinity, and the way most people define it is, some men have some bad habits. Well, that's not toxic masculinity, right? Like toxic masculinity implies that a whole gender has some overarching problems, and that's just baloney. Um, Sorry to get political here. I actually kind of didn't realize this was going to come up. But are there bad behaviors that men are prone to? Yes. Go get a psychology textbook. Look up the fact. There are men are more prone to alcoholism. They're more prone to addiction. They are more prone to violence. Okay, so those are masculine traits, and they're more men in prison by a vast number than women. So are there masculine traits that can lead us to trouble? Yes, but that's not masculinity, right? A true man's man is honorable and respectable. They're not going to be addicted to anything. They're not going to, right? If you're addicted to something, if you're abusing substances, if you're abusing other people, if you're losing control of yourself and becoming violent, none of those are masculine characteristics. Okay, those are all pathetic loser characteristics. Sorry, but that's my rant for the day. And I think we need to come back to society. There's an important role for shame in society, and if you do something stupid, you should be ashamed. That's one of the ways that societies function, and one of the ways we modify poor behavior. Anyway. Sorry, guys. I find it a lot better than the gaming and car communities. Fair enough. But again, toxic masculinity is not a thing. When you get someone to define their terms, it becomes completely meaningless. That's how you spot the rookies, blah, blah, blah. Using your pocket knife at a restaurant to cut your meal is the nerdiest thing you could do. And where are you eating? I don't want to dull my knife on the ceramic plate. So unless I'm eating at a fast food restaurant where everything's cardboard and styrofoam, I'm not going to use my knife. I'd much rather use their knife and get it dull than my own. I take my GEC ball buster for eats. It blends well enough. Traditional, no flash. Again, the other thing I have with this is, what are you eating that you can't cut it with basically a butter knife, right? If I go to a steak restaurant and I can't cut my steak with the knife provided, I'm sending that steak back because it's way too tough for me to be paying money for. What else have we got here? Yep, already talked about that. Let's go back here. We're back to CRK. CRK's S35VN is soft. I have dozens of other S35VN blades that I use lightly, and none of them holds like my daily beater in Cosi. I guess this is kind of my experience too. And this is one of those things I like, I get the trend to Rockwell test, and I hate that knife steel and Rockwell hardness have become a marketing tool. All right, but I'm more inclined to value experience. So if I've got a knife that I've cut for days with and I've beat the crap out of it and it still has a great edge, I'm happy. Okay. Phosphor bronze, large phosphor bronze bushings are better than bearings. Yes, right. I really, really like, and I wish that every knife would adopt the CRK approach to their bearings. No knife should be carried tip down, even if that's the only way the pocket clip works. That's true. Map my card is the only way to go. Yeah, sure. Spyderco needs to have their scales made by another company. So this was a weird one. I'm not sure. I'm not sure why this person feels this way. I think Spyderco scales are fine. Maybe they've had some bad experiences. I don't like Sebenza because it didn't innovate over the years. I think they're talking about Chris Reeve knives because they didn't innovate over the years. But let me tell you about the 6th Gen XM18. It's pure genius compared to the 5 others. Actually, I do think the Gen 6 hinderers are an improvement. The option to switch out those bearings is a valuable option. And the Sebenza is only one model, so it would be the same model over the years. I think they're talking about CRK, and I don't know what. I think CRK is in a unique place. That what makes them special is that they haven't changed that much. It's sort of like Jeep. If you change the Jeep Wrangler too much, everyone's going to say that's no longer a Jeep Wrangler. That's stupid. I'm not buying it. You've got to preserve some things, and Chris Reeve Knives has to preserve some things as well to make it still be a Chris Reeve. I think people who use automatic sharpeners are lazy. I would add, and stupid. Those automatic sharpeners are horrible. They're going to ruin your knife. Just sharpen by hand. Small batch CNC milled hyped up frame locks are destroying the spirit of our hobby and the market that surrounds it. Okay. I don't know if this is totally true, but yeah, I mean, sometimes this is a problem. So, I will just say, I think there is a place if you've got a great design and you think people would love it and you want to make a few to see how it goes. Hey, feel free. And me as a knife reviewer, if I like it and I buy it and I give it a positive review, I get that people are going to be frustrated because you can't get as many as you want, but that's you know not everyone has the money to produce 10,000 of something. So that's just, it is what it is. Buying a knife really readily available in Canada out of the US is ridiculous. No, it's not, because in Canada, the prices are insanely inflated and, it's just frustrating that a knife, as soon as it crosses the border, is magically worth, you know, 40% more, and I'm not paying that 40%. Sorry. And someone said saving $80 is a good thing, and $80 is significant. I've got to tell you, I saw on this particular site, I've seen some Civivi knives for over $100. There's no Civivi that is ever worth more than $100. If you're selling a Civivi for more than $80, you're doing something severely wrong on either side of the border. Supporting Canadian jobs and stock availability is even a better thing. If you want your business to do well, you're going to have to compete. And these days, you're competing at least North America wide. So figure it out. Paying in installments doesn't sound that bad. Oh yes, it does. Paying in installments is a terrible idea if you're a knife guy, because you don't buy one knife and then pay it off. You're probably buying two, three, four knives a month. And if you're paying $20 a month on all of those knives, or 25 or $30 a month, pretty soon you've got a car payment or a mortgage payment going out because you've got 25 knives. Serrations belong on a bread knife. Bread is meant to meant to be broken, not sliced. So there's no use for serrations. I get that they're good for cutting clothes, but I don't find myself cutting a lot of clothes. Cutting rope, I'm a rope guy. Don't cut rope. Untie the knot. Do not cut rope. It's too expensive and too valuable. Just leave it alone. All right. 97% of the time, I don't like them and ultimately serve a purpose. Okay. Um, Usually for working class folk. Really? I mean, I don't think he's trying to kind of sort of make a bit of a bourgeoisie kind of comment there. I guess they do. They're just not for me. Mostly, yeah, I prefer a clean edge. Okay, S brand Spyderco knives are most unergonomic and ugliest piece of craptastic cutlery that exists, ranking up right up there with the worst China gas station knives. No. You've clearly never held anything out of Taichung. Oh, this is in response to this. I don't know. Golden Colorado Spydercos are fantastic, but maybe if this guy's only ever had, a Tenacious or something, and Tenaciouses are not always great. Assisted knives other than OTF is ludicrous. You should be able to create magic move with your fingers. I don't, I know, I get people don't like assisted knives because the whole drop shot action became a thing. And I think assisted knives can be great. Copper brass EDC gear looks cool, but suck because they make your hands smell funky. Yes, they do. Negotiation is 50% of secondary knife sales. Yes, it is. Let's see. I'd love to know down in the comments, when you price something for the secondary, what do you add? Do you add 20% to it, more than what you want? Do you add? I think most people add a little bit and expect to get some lower offers. Let's see. Country of origin does not automatically make one knife. No, that doesn't. Riyadh shut me up. I was the biggest anti-China person ever. Without it, some of the nicest knives. I mean, look, the fact is, there's lots of different countries that make lots of different stuff. I don't care what country it comes from. I care, did they do a good job making it or not? I wish my knives received all the admiration my pens do. I do get this. I carry a decent pen around with me all the time, and I'll often get comments on it. Well, rarely getting comments on knives. So yeah, I can kind of agree with that. So someone said I read penis the first time. So I wish all my knives received the admiration my penis do from common folk. Okay. That too, he says. Anybody that would spend 1750 on a Holt Spectre should surely attend a minister's funeral dressed in feathers. Yes, and actually, this was my reply. I said, yeah, if the government wants to know who they should tax more, it's anyone who bought a Spectre on the secondary market, because they obviously have more than enough money. They don't need any more. Someone should tax them. So yes, if you're watching this and you bought a Spectre on the secondary market, you should be taxed at a higher rate than everyone else because you have more money than brains. Let's see. Lock strength on folders is just a hyped up thing. Most tests done are unrealistic. That's fair enough. Griptilian or blade geometry is comparable to a sharpened pry bar. It's not quite that bad, but grips do not have great blade edge geometry. That's true. All right. When you cut yourself flipping on the couch, you should be glad you don't use your stuff. Wear resistance does not equal toughness. True, good point. Lanyards are useless on most folders. I hate lanyards. I don't know why they're there. What's the value of tying a string to your knife? It's not going to get away. It can't run. It doesn't. Anyway, yeah, a leash on a knife makes no sense. And if the knife is so small that it needs a lanyard for your hand, that's too small. Make it bigger. There should be no such thing as safe queens. I mean, I don't care. Nobody buying sprint runs can tell the difference in the steel. That's true. Sprint runs are a license for Spyderco to sprint print money. Good point. Debating lock strength is absurd. Grab a fixed blade if you need it. Yeah, that's a good point. Most folders are left too thick behind the cutting edge. Doesn't matter what super steel it has. Yeah, there a lot are left too thick behind the edge, and that is an important thing. Lion steel used to be so bad for this, but they've definitely gotten better. Benchmade can still be a little thick behind the edge, especially the 940. For such a popular knife, it has some real weaknesses. It's not very comfortable, and it's not thin enough behind the edge. Let's see, so many horrible opinions. I prefer the look of Spyderco over Benchmade, ZT, Hinders, and CRKs. Okay, I'm starting to like a few of these uglier brands, but still my eyes are drawn to the Spider. Uh, yeah, I mean, that's not that unpopular of opinion. Spydercos are uh, pretty well liked. Where's the top comment? There we go. I buy something, it's meant to be used. We call them tools. Use them as such. No sway. Yeah, I mean, not really. I mean, there's lots of people, right? Think about any hobby where there's potential for high end. People buy cars to drive, generally speaking, except for those who don't, right? There's people who buy cars, put them in a museum, put them in an underground garage, and keep them safe, right? So while yes, cars are meant to be driven, there's a role for, or there's some joy to be had out of just saving them. And the same is true of knives. Folks who tell others what to do with their money and then get mad when others proceed to do something else with their money are silly geese. Fair enough. Fossil bronze washers are better than bearings. I often agree with that. You have to take a knife apart as soon as you get it to make it yours. I know there are some people like this. I sort of feel like this, and partly I think it's because I'm a reviewer. So by taking it apart and seeing what's going on inside, I can share that with you guys and save you the trouble. And there's a number of us, that do that. Nick Shabazz, I think, at this point, almost disassembles every single knife and shares that video. I've tried to do that, and I can't walk and chew bubblegum, so there's no way I can take apart a knife and talk at the same time. Uh, oh, this one's going to make people hate me. Promoting and encouraging knives for self-defense, especially by individuals who couldn't run to the corner store, cracks me up. Yeah, I mean, I get having a defensive option in a dangerous neighborhood, but really, if you need to carry something with you all the time to defend yourself, man, I would be looking at a different lifestyle. Like I would not be comfortable. And if you need it, right? Let's say you're going into an area where there is high danger. Hey, carrying a weapon for self-defense makes sense. But if it's that dangerous, I want to carry a gun, not a knife. Anyway, yeah. So a knife is probably not the best self-defense option. There are definitely better ones, especially if you're not trained. And then, yeah, someone training by some Muppet with zero knowledge, training, and experience is dangerous. The best teachers will tell you to run away. And there's a great Jocko Wilkins discussion about this, where he says, like, think about it. Even if you win the fight, there's such a huge downside, right? You could go to jail. You could be financially responsible for damages that are caused. Like, it's just not worth it. Just run away. Only using your knives as photography models isn't really using your stuff. Sure it is. I feel personally attacked by this one. Let's see. I think we're almost done here, guys. Is this the last page? It is the last page. Then he says, no, a personal attack would be a whole different thing. So I'm not going to get into that. Flippers are just taking advantage of dummies who will pay for a knife they've already had in 10 colors. He's talking about knife flippers. And, look, the market is what the market is. If you own a knife and the market is saying that it's worth $500 today, even though you paid $300 for it, who cares? Sell it for whatever the going rate is on the market. I mean, I'm not really getting into this. The other side of that is if you don't like it, then vote with your dollars and don't buy it. That's how we as consumers exercise control in the marketplace, by not buying stuff. And the whole Spectre thing drives me insane. The whole Spectre is a great $500 knife, but that's it. Right. And if you paid more, then you overpaid. And if all of us just said, no, we're not paying more, it would have to, the secondary would have to come back into realistic numbers. Stop giving away my secrets. There's no best knife. There's no perfect knife. There's only knives you've tried and knives you will try. Then someone says, I disagree. The perfect knife is the next one. That's true. Knife, cheap or expensive, that looks good and isn't beat to crap doesn't mean that it isn't being used and used hard. It's called using the right tool for the right job and maintenance. Look into it. Yeah, and I think this is true. I sometimes, I carry a different knife every day, so that means most of my knives are only getting carried one day a month. And so it's taking 5 years to get the same amount of wear on a knife that someone else's knife would get in 1 year. Okay. But taking care of your stuff is not wrong. I know people who have cars that they bought 20 years ago that look fantastic, and there's nothing wrong with that. Let's see. People who think a single scratch anywhere a knife drops the value by half incurs a complete lack of interest. And I think he's trying to say, like, if you're using it as a tool, then a scratch doesn't matter. And that's true. And really, that's not a thing. I suspect this is someone who is negotiating and someone said, look, I can see your knife is all beat up. I'm not paying full price for it. Waffle groups ruined the knife selling and trading game. I mean, I don't know. I have seen people who maybe look, guys, all I would say is this: if you're doing a lot of waffles, and those are knife raffles, if you're doing a lot of raffles, look at how much you're spending. There's a really good chance you're not getting ahead, right? You could have just saved the money from all those raffles and bought the knife you wanted without taking that risk. But that said, if it's a reasonable price, and I've entered raffles before, and I've even won a couple raffles, especially if it's a friend who's trying to sell something and I want to kind of promote it or help out a little bit. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll throw $20 at this, and every once in a while you win one. Norseman is overrated, and that's putting it mildly. I agree. The Norseman is really about the quality of manufacturing, and look, the Grimsmo brothers are doing incredible work. It is questionable whether that level of work is necessary or whether you can justify the cost, right? When you're making a knife that you have to charge $600 for to make a profit, that's tough. Maybe you should look at a different way of making stuff that costs less. All right. But tiling with a large knife is superior in every way to an axe or hatchet for processing small wood. Totally agree. You can get, think about it. When you're splitting wood with an axe, it gets down to a certain size and then you can't do it anymore. And you kind of have to switch to your knife. And that's how I do it. And I imagine a lot of people do that. I would use a Gerber for my SHTF knife. You'd probably be the first one dead. Chisel ground knife looks like a blade half finished, as completely useless as a folder. I agree. EDC, I mean, chisel ground knives are not terrible, I guess, if you don't need to cut anything or if you're on a construction site. Like, a chisel is a useful tool, but it's just not a useful EDC tool. That's what I would say about that. All right, guys, this has been a long video. Thanks a lot for watching. Thanks to everyone who commented. Thanks for those who are commenting on this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to check the channel sponsors. That does help me out a lot. I think we're going to go with DLT on this one, and we will talk to you soon.